Welcome in to the DNVR Avalanche podcast. Today we mourn the loss of an Avalanche legend, one of the men who helped build some of the greatest Avalanche teams ever in Pierre Lacroix. Can't even say his name. That's the Rudo curse right there. I am Rudo, as always, joined by AJ Hayfley. And for today's show, back on the podcast, Adrian Dater. AD, first of all, how are you doing? And good to have you.
Well, thanks for having me, gentlemen. And you too, AJ. It's a pleasure to be on the airwaves here. I wish it were under happier circumstances for sure. Hopefully we can do a Stanley Cup wrap-up podcast or something next summer. But I'm honored to be able to come on and talk about a man who really deserves a lot of honors, and hopefully I can do that justice here with you guys. Pierre Lacroix was somebody I definitely have nothing but just unbelievable memories with, and hope to share some of them right here with you guys.
Yeah, for sure. I assume most Avs fans know, but if you are a little bit younger, maybe not a face you recognize, Pierre Lacroix was the general manager of the Avs for a decade between their first season through about 2006, I believe. So he literally built the 2 Stanley Cup championship Avs teams and some of those legendary teams in between.
Yep, 9 straight division titles his first 9 years on the job. Is that pretty good, guys, or I don't know?
Guess it's okay. Yeah,
getting NHL record, not too shabby.
I thought it was an all-time record, but I think John Sherholtz of the Atlanta Braves had 10. I think he's since broke out. I think it was a record at the time, but but it's still a hockey record, and good luck anybody trying to beat that. 9 in the first 9 years. He was a winner. He wasn't always. Didn't win every year, but he always went for it. To me, that's what Pierre was always about. Was his just he did not believe in anything less than the best shot at winning a Stanley Cup every year. Now maybe that you can be argued that could have hurt the future Cup board a little bit, but that's just the way Pierre was. And argue about it or not, debate it. Those 2 Stanley Cup banners hang in the Ball Arena now, when so many teams in the league do not have any Stanley Cup banners. Minnesota Wild, that's his legacy right there, winning.
Yeah, 2 Stanley Cup banners a lot better than a number 1's fan banner. That's for sure. You bring up a good point. Certainly, under Joe Sakic, his moves have always been a lot more tempered so far in his career as the Avs GM, whereas Lacroix was a very, very aggressive his entire GMing career. If he thought someone could make the team better, he would go out and get a trade done.
Yep. Well, and he had to. He had a different team dealt to him than Joe Sakic did too. I mean, he took over the Quebec Nordiques in 1993-94 season. And 94-95 season. And, they were rebuilding still a little bit, but they were also, a team that was starting to get a little better. It made the playoffs that season, won the Eastern regular season title anyway that season. He started off his tenure there with a huge blockbuster with Wendell Clark to the Maple Leafs Wendell Clark to the Nordiques for Matt Sundin and that whole thing. Sylvain Lefebvre, everything came to Quebec. That's what he didn't waste any time. He thought he had a team on the rise and he wanted to get it turbocharged. Then when it moves to Denver, he did what he did from there, and we'll talk about his moves. But I mean, obviously, he didn't waste any time making deals either here in Denver. He made the first big one was the Claude Lemieux deal, I believe, first. Then it was the Sandis Ozolinsh trade. Then it was Patrick Waugh, all within the first 2 months on the job. And there were 3 pretty big moves that kind of helped out that team win that first cup. And Pierre was just he used to tell me, I'm just a guy who loves to make deals. I go past a house with a for sale sign on it, and I instantly want to pull over and make a deal with the owner, talk price. And he literally was like that. Everything was a negotiation with him. Everything was the fun of the deal. He got so bored with lack of anything. He just you could see his you could see the goosebumps practically come on his skin every year when the trade deadline got near. And he knew he was up to something. He didn't let anybody know, of course, not even his own family, I don't think. But you knew he was up to something, and you knew he was going to go for it. We just were conditioned to that right away in Denver.
Yeah, I think the fearlessness for him to make hard decisions, to make big decisions. This is a guy that traded Chris Drury after the start that Drury had to his career in Colorado. And I mean, we all know that in hindsight, it was a nightmare, but the stones it took to make a move like that, and his willingness to go big and to go bold. I mean, the guy acquires 4 first-rounders in the hopes of trying to trade all the way up to number 1 and get Vincent Lecavalier. Like the guy was he was a legend, and his willingness to wheel and deal at the absolute highest level of the league, I don't think has been matched since his departure.
Oh, I don't think so. I mean, there's been some very big trades, but not all by the same guy. And
right.
It's succession. There was the Waugh trade, of course, but there were others. I mean, Theo Fleury trade was a blockbuster.
Yeah.
Didn't work out as well as he wanted, probably, but people do forget that they made the Western Finals with Theo Fleury. I think Theo Fleury had like 15 playoff points or something in 15 games. I mean, it was pretty good numbers when you looked back on it. They went to Game 7 of the Western Finals. It wasn't exactly a disaster after they got him. Of course, Robin Regeer would have looked good in an Avs sweater in future years, but he went for it there. Then there was the Rob Blake trade. I mean, that worked out pretty well, even though at the time it was very controversial. Adam Deadmarsh going to the Kings. I mean, the guy had just had twins who were premature births, and the mother was having trouble, and off he goes to LA all of a sudden too. I mean, talk about a tough trade to make. He said later, I think he said that, I think Terry Fry reported this, that it was, he quoted him saying that was his toughest trade ever, to sit him down and, say, hey, I got some bad news here, kid. We're trading you. Team that was on the doorstep of another cup. But that worked out. That's exactly what they needed, was a Rob Blake. And, of course, the next year they get Ray Bourque. On and on it went. I mean, he never made a trade for Peter Forsberg, but, he saw that whole thing happen too. And then he kind of engineered that whole thing, getting him back. A lot of people forget that he was involved in getting Peter back and talking him back. 2008, I believe. He wasn't the GM then, but he was still had a role with the team. And trust me when I tell you that I think he did most of the legwork getting that deal done and Francois Giguère got the credit, but that was Pierre doing most of the legwork there.
I think most of us have always just assumed that was the case.
Yeah.
No disrespect to Francois Giguère, but
who, by the way, it's like, did he even exist here? I mean, Francois Giguère tenure was like kind of came and went, didn't it?
Yeah, it was kind of a footnote in history where if you were to ask even the most diehard of Avs fans to name the Avs GMs, guy is harder to remember than Greg Sherman.
He was just so quiet. He's so awkward around the media and people in general, really, that, anyway, he succeeded Pierre. Pierre was one of a kind, man. He was, it's just sad. I mean, I don't know what the, exact cause of death is, but I mean, I guess he contracted COVID, and, apparently he was getting over that though. But then, he had a heart thing yesterday, and it just sucks, because I mean, here we are with a vaccine almost around the corner here.
Yeah.
It's too bad. Pierre was always, Pierre had a lot of health issues, and he talked about his health a lot. And he always said, like, he kind of said to me a couple of times, like, he didn't think he was going to live a long life, really. I think he'd probably been, if I told him he was going to live to 72 back in the 90s when he used to talk about health, he probably would have been happy with that in a way. But, it's still, I think he was healthier than he'd been in a long time these last couple of years. That's the thing that sucks the most. And, but things happen fast, obviously. And, it's a big loss.
Yeah, I think the vacuum that he left just the hole that he left in the game when he decided to step away, the salary cap era obviously made his job harder to do because there had to be a lot less living in the moment and a lot less of the riverboat gambler every trade deadline. ELCs became extremely valuable, and all those future pieces that he loved to trade away. He loved to trade for and away because there were some draft classes where the guy had accumulated an incredible number of draft picks.
Yeah,
he loved to make those deals, and the salary cap era just sort of changed the landscape of the league and changed the way that he had to operate, and it was just never quite the same for him.
Yeah, if there's one guy who got really screwed by the canceled season of 04-05, it was Pierre Lacroix. Who would have ever thought that the cap would go down so drastically coming out of that season into that 05 season? I mean, to $39 million was the cap number that year.
Yeah.
I mean, they had that in they had half that cap in two guys, basically, Sakic and Blake. Waugh had left a couple years before and taken them some money away, but they still had other guys like Hayduk and some really big name guys still, and of course Peter Forsberg and Adam Foote were two of them too. Just happened to be in their contract years coming out of that, so they had to sacrifice Forsberg and Foote, and obviously it was just a nightmare. He did really good to salvage it with Patrice Brisebois and Pierre Turgeon, but obviously that was just a pale comparison. And it's too bad because he would have found a way, I think, to definitely keep Forsberg. I mean, if it only been just a few more million, let's say it was 43 million or something, Pierre would have found a way to keep Bopa and Foote. I don't know Foote necessarily. I think Foote was ready to leave for some other reasons anyway and wanted to try something new. But, Forsberg never should have left. And then, Pierre was never, I mean, that was the hardest thing for him ever, was having to say goodbye to Peter Forsberg. Basically had his hand forced on him by a ridiculous new cap number. But, that's the way it was. And he, the amazing thing to me was the Avs are still a pretty good team those next couple of years, really. I mean, he still made some pretty good moves that helped the Avs get back to the playoffs, at least. They did make the playoffs in that 05 season, right? 05-06?
Yep.
And, I know they missed it one year, but, they had they still were, pretty, I mean, you look back to 2008, I mean, remember the lineup they used to have? They got Fopa back. They had Foote. Ryan Smith was on their third line. Stastny, Sakic, Andrew Burnett. Hayduk. Pretty good team still. But yeah, it was the salary cap was the worst thing that ever happened to Pierre Lacroix, really, when it came to doing his job, and it wasn't a coincidence probably that he stepped down a year later.
We do have to take our first period break here. We are sponsored by Breckenridge Brewery. Pour one out for Pierre Lacroix today if you have one. If you're looking for it, you can use the Breck Beer Locator online to find some beer near you. And if you want to take your mind off things, you can always play some WGT golf as well. They have their digital golf game both on your phone or on your computer. You can play either way. Search for DNVR4 to join our clubhouse. We have almost 1,000 members when you download the game from dnvrgolf.com. Yeah, don't want to take too much away from Pierre. We do have sponsors, though, that we do have to shout out, of course. But the main topic of the day is Pierre Lacroix. So we'll keep it short, keep it brief, and jump back into this conversation. Lacroix really did build. When you look at the players that came through Colorado before the salary cap, I mean, Dave Andrechuk, you guys already mentioned Theo Fleury, and a bunch of the other Hall of Fame or borderline Hall of Fame players that played for Colorado in that time. It's incredible to think how good even the teams that didn't win the cup would go on to be known. The players on those teams, Correa and Solani, the most famous super team built there that didn't work out, but just amazing how effective Lacroix was at going out and getting true superstar talent.
Yeah, I mean, he got almost all the big names in that several-year period. I mean, Detroit got some big names too, obviously, and they did very well for themselves. But boy, Pierre was. Now the argument is, Pierre did tend to, arguably gave away the story a little bit too much on a couple of those deals. But again, you go back to the fact that he actually did win 2 cups, basically, because of 2 of those trades. There's no way they win the first cup, obviously, without Wah, or the second, frankly. And they don't win the cup without Blake and Bork in 01. So those are all acquisitions that made by Pierre. That's what you look back on in the end. It's like, geez, there are the banners. That's what you feel pride in when you're an Avalanche fan, is that there they are. We won. We can say we're champions, unlike the Minnesota Wild. And it's great. That's what it's all about. To me, as a fan, that's all I care about. I know the fans, a lot of them want to always be saving for that rainy day in the future and all that. Maybe I'm older, and Pierre was more my age, and he's older than me, but I always felt like just go for it. Let's always just roll the dice. That's what sports is about. Now, yeah, you don't want to make something stupid and trade away, Jeff Bagwell for Larry Anderson, like an old Red Sox team of mine did once. But, you get my point. And, people do forget that Pierre would stockpile those draft picks for years. I mean, the fact that they had 4 first-round picks in 1998, 2 years after winning a Stanley Cup, with all that young talent that they'd already had, the fact that they had 4 first-rounders was like, you felt really guilty being an Avs fan. Like, this is unfair. What are we going to do with all this stuff? Well, it turned out that, 2 of those guys, he wanted to trade them all for LeCavier. He tried hard to do it, but Phil Esposito just wasn't going to do it. And, it still worked out. 3 of the 4 picks ended up winning cups with the Avalanche. Tanguay, Skula, Scott Parker technically did too. And who's the 4th guy I'm missing here?
Robin Regeer.
Who?
Yeah. Regeer was the 4th.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Right. Robin Regeer was the other one. He won a cup too, albeit with the LA Kings, but yeah. So, it's unbelievable. You look back, all the stuff Pierre pulled off and the stuff he did. He was just an active GM. And to cover those teams, there's a reason why I probably, like, to this day, I'm like, anytime the phone rings, I just jump a little bit because I always thought, there's a trade. You know, you got to clear out what you just wrote and rewrite another thing because here comes another one. And boy, it was fun though, right? Being a newsman in those days and writing all those stories about the trades. I mean, it was just one headline after another, you know, and it was just fun, man. That's the word that comes to mind, fun.
Yeah, I know that you and Pierre had some interesting dynamics over the years too, huh?
Yeah. It wasn't always wine and roses, that's for sure. I just wrote a thing today about, you know, my deeper memories being around him and what he was like. He was this, you know, guy from Quebec. I myself was a guy from the East myself, but you know, I was a rookie reporter. He was almost a rookie GM. I mean, there was a lot of things we went through together at the same time that were really unique to us. Like we both came to Denver and started this being around this thing called the Colorado Avalanche all of a sudden. And probably 2 years before, none of us would ever dream was even possible. And he, you know, I remember him just so full of life and he was so friendly in the beginning. He was, I don't think he quite understood the role of what American media did at times in those early years. I think he, you know, not that Canadian media is light on the teams in Canada, but I think he thought that, you know, the press is maybe more supposed to be, you know, on the team in a way. You know, you're supposed to be nice to your team you cover and not criticize. And I don't think he always understood that, just frankly, the first year or two. And you know, he was so outgoing and friendly, wanting to put us on the team plane and, hey, come on into my office and let's talk. You give us, I remember him going over a couple of trades that he was working on and actually him telling us details and stuff we never did later on. And then the first time we wrote something critical about the team, he's like, what'd you write that for? And, you know, he'd get super mad at you. And I'd say, look, well, Pierre, you know, we can be buddies, but I'm not supposed to cheer for the team. I don't know if you know that, but, you know, I can't, there's a saying, no cheering in the press box. And I think finally, after a year or two, he understood more what our jobs entailed. And there was a little bit of a break as far as the real closeness that we might have had at first, but that was bound to happen. The bottom line is, though, the Pierre was always professional to be around. He never stabbed you in the back. He never held grudges or leaked stuff to the other paper. You know, he'd said nothing to anybody after a while, which was fine as long as it's on equal terms. It's great. And but he was always, he always said, you know, I don't read the papers. Everybody says that, of course, but they always do. But he always says something like, I didn't read it, but somebody told me about this, you know, and then of course he'd cite chapter and verse everything he wrote. And I'd always be like, Pierre, I thought you said you didn't read the paper. Oh, I don't. It's just somebody told me. And but yeah, he read the papers and he called me up he woke me up many mornings at 6 a.m. with phone calls. And I go, I think I knew I'd be conditioned after a while. Like, I knew that's Pierre. He's mad about something. And sure enough, he was. And he'd say, you know, what is this shit you write? And he would just go on for like the next 4 or 5 minutes screaming. And then he'd just hang up. And before I could even say a word back. And then you'd see him later at the office, though, or at the game. And he'd be like, hey, Adrian. You know, he'd forget about it. There were no grudges. You know, he knew that it's not like he instantly forgot it, but he was always, it was never personal for long. He never held a grudge, and he was always professional and professionally courteous there. Then the next day, everything was always forgotten. That's another thing I always liked about him.
Yeah, It's a little more corporate atmosphere these days.
You think?
You know,
You think?
I can tell you I've never had Joe Sakic call me at 6 a.m. and be upset about something that I wrote.
Yeah, hardly me either. I mean, he's gotten mad at me a couple times, but he doesn't call me like Pierre did. Pierre knew my home number, and he called it plenty, believe me. Or I was in a hotel many times, too. And those days, I always stayed in the same hotel as the Avs. And sure enough, that phone would ring in the hotel room at 6 a.m. That was Pierre. And he would get clippings sent to him by that hour. And sure enough, I remember there was one little line I wrote about. You know, I used to do these little preview boxes for the night's game, you know, like, and then spotlight a player on the other team. Yeah. And I remember one of them in Edmonton was Anson Carter, who used to be property of the Nordiques. And they traded him away. And I wrote something like a one-line thing about, well, it didn't quite work out trading Anson Carter or something like that for the Avalanche. And I swear to God, the phone rang at 6 a.m. and it was like, what is this shit you all about Anson Carter? And he's I'm like, Pierre, he's had a good, you know, you didn't get that much anything for him, and he's had a pretty good career. You know, what am I supposed to say? You know, but that, you know, again, forgotten. He didn't like criticism. Who does? Yeah. But over the years, especially later in his later years, he mellowed out a lot more, and he would tell you, look, I mean, you were right, half the shit. You know, he'd say something like that. He wouldn't come out and say it publicly, but he'd say, yeah, you know, he said he screwed up on a few deals, and that's just the way it goes. And he wasn't too big to admit that.
I mean, especially as often as he dealt, you're bound to get some wrong.
Yeah, I mean, the law of averages. I mean, you know, the Drury trade obviously was his worst. But at the time, I mean, Derek Morris really had a good reputation as a young up-and-coming D-man. And yep. They had a vacancy in that three-headed monster that he really loved as Bork, Foot, Blake. Well, Bork's gone. And at that time, you know, Derek Morris looked very attractive on paper. You know, young two-way D-man who could play for years and years. Well, Drury's a heavy price to give up, but, you know, we got to give him to get, you know, right? So, obviously, in hindsight, it didn't work. Derek Morris wasn't very good here. And wasn't very good in the rest of his career, really. But he was a very promising guy with Calgary at that time. And, you know, it wasn't a horrible player, but yeah. So that's right. You can't hit a home run every at bat.
Yeah, I mean, Derek Morris's career year came as a member of the Avs.
Yeah, he wasn't that bad actually that first year, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he was. I remember thinking, well, where's the physicality we heard about, or, you know, the guy who pretty tough in the corners and stuff. I'm like, all right, I guess that was a lie, but
yeah,
he could skate, he could shoot, he had a good hard shot. You know, he was on the ice for Patrick Waugh's last goal against, staring in the net. I do remember that too. But yeah, hey, yeah, like I said. You know, the other deal that, you know, I mean, there were a couple other little bad ones. Bates Battaglia for Radim Vrbata. That wasn't a good one. But hey, right? I mean, at that time, too, Bates Battaglia was a nice looking player on paper, too. He just played in the Stanley Cup final.
Yeah, he had Bates Battaglia had a 20-goal year the year before he got traded.
Yeah, no, they thought, oh, this guy's a power forward. He's a, you know, what a deal for the Avs. Radim Vrbata is just a, you know, Czech kid. He's kind of talented, but oh well, it'd be just a dime a dozen. I think he went on to score 300 goals.
Probably played like 1,200 games.
Yeah.
I mean, even when he gets it wrong, though, he ended up flipping Battaglia for Steve Konowalchuk, which looked good until the injury, but, well, like, not really an injury.
He rescued that trade. That's right. Like, Kono was a really good player for the Avs until, unfortunately, he got a heart ailment and couldn't play anymore.
Yeah.
So Lacroix from Quebec, from Montreal, really. has he ever really talked about that? Originally being the GM of technically the Quebec Nordiques, and let's face it, the trade he's most going to be remembered for is probably the Patrick Waugh trade, getting him out of Montreal. So, were the ties pretty deep there, or how did he manage that with the team moving to Colorado?
Well, yeah, no, he was more from Montreal, and that's where, he grew up a Habs fan, and so I don't think he ever had quite the guilt complex about Quebec that he might have had if, say, Montreal. I know this, though. He had no love lost toward the Montreal Canadiens, though, when he became a GM, because I do think that there was a time, if I read right, that he was under consideration to be the GM of the Canadiens at that time, but they chose, Réjean Houle. Might be off a little of that timeline, but I think Pierre felt slighted by that, and I know that he never had that great affection again for Montreal Canadiens. I think he still liked the city of Montreal, but he only spent the 1 year in Quebec. He never wanted, that team to leave. Obviously, nobody did. I mean, there was a really sad moment for so many, people there, but it was business and they couldn't afford it anymore, and off he came. I mean, he really, though, took to Denver like a duck to water. He loved the city right away. I think he felt reborn in a lot of ways coming out here. He could be somebody brand new and nobody knew all his baggage or name and everything back home like it did in a small place like Montreal. And he really thrived here. I remember him talking so much about the big, beauteous mountains and all the big fresh air and everything. And he just, he couldn't believe it, nobody could from Quebec when they came out here. It was like this scenic vista that they read out of a storybook or something that they'd only heard about. Well, once they came out here, it was unbelievable. They all loved it. And they liked, frankly, they'll tell you privately, they liked being in Denver a lot more than they liked being in Quebec. Just the weather alone. I mean, the weather in Quebec is brutal.
Yeah.
Good fans, good hockey city, obviously. But, boy, they liked being in Denver a lot more than living in Quebec.
A quick question from the chat here before we take our second break. Why was he so quick to trade people that went to arbitration?
Well, I think the true answer is that he did take some things personally. He was not a guy that, if you crossed him, it's one thing to cross him or something you wrote or anything. He could get over that pretty quick, but he really did believe in this concept of family. And if you were disloyal to the family somehow, you could get, you'd be Fredo out on the lake, he was the godfather who would order the hit. You had to be very loyal to him, and sometimes loyalty was a one-way street maybe with him. It may have been a bad quality that he had, especially in some of those earlier years. But it is a fact that everybody who held out on him, even for one day, always mysteriously was an ex-Av by like no later than another season. You go right down the list: Scott Young, Kaminsky, Ozelinch, all those guys that held out, even for a little bit, Drury, were gone. Just like almost to a T, every single one of them. I don't think he, did it purely out of spite, but I don't, once he crossed Pierre, it was tough. I mean, you really had to say your amends or sorries, and maybe he'd take you back. But there's no question about it that I can't sit there and say for sure that he did that because he's never said that or anything. But it's just the fact of the matter that guys who he crossed the line loyalty wise, he somehow found expendable after a while.
All right. Well, we can take our second period break on that note. Dater, you mentioned that Pierre was a little bit of a gambler himself, at least when it came to trades and the like. So if you want to make a surefire bet with DraftKings Sportsbook, basketball is returning very, very soon, and they are giving you a spread of 75 points on opening night. So if a team loses by less than 75 points, you will win this bet. Basically like trading for Patrick Waugh. Pretty free money at that point. Highly recommend you get in on it. Go to DraftKings Sportsbook to check out that bet and all of their other odds boosts and other options as well. A ton of awesome opportunities to win yourself a little bit of money on DraftKings, which is super safe and reliable, making it easy for you to deposit and withdraw your money at your convenience. Download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code DNVR when you sign up to get a 75-point spread on opening night for a shot to double your money. Just double your money. Make any kind of reasonable bet for the 75-point spread, and you've doubled your money. Super easy. Again, the DNVR code to get in on that opportunity for opening night only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older, Colorado only. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem, call 1-800-522-4700. Third period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast with Rudo, AJ, and Adrian Dater here, talking Pierre Lacroix, the pretty squarely at this point the best GM in Avs history, not by even a close margin. Sakic maybe someday will get there, but right now it's not close. So an interesting topic in the chat. Do we all believe that he should be in the Hall of Fame?
Well, glad you asked that, because I think the answer is absolutely yes. I think it's a joke that he's not in the Hall of Fame. I'll share something here where I think I've said it publicly, but I actually wrote a letter to the Hockey Hall of Fame on behalf of Pierre. Eric Lacroix, his son, asked me to write it, and it was an honor to write it. And I wish I had a copy of that still, because I spelled out all the reasons why he should be in the Hall. But just the numbers alone. Ken Holland just made it, right? For being, the big genius innovator who, I'm sorry, I'm going to have a little anti-Red Wing bile come out here, but, Ken
Don't be
Holland,
sorry about that. Yeah.
the magical 3-on-3 overtime. Okay, great. That's a good idea. We're glad we have it. But for him to go in as a builder and ahead of Pierre Lacroix, I thought was an insult. Not just because of what Pierre did as a GM, but as a true builder of the game. He was very instrumental in building the game before he was a GM. He was a high-powered hockey agent who really did a lot, especially for the French-Canadian players, who traditionally gotten screwed a lot of times at the bargaining table back in the old days. A lot of people will tell you there was a definite bias against French-Canadian people in the hockey world back in those days. And Pierre was one of those guys who came in and righted a lot of wrongs when it came to especially salaries. And then he comes in as a GM and did what he did. 9 straight division titles his first 9 years on the job. 2 Stanley Cups, 6 Western Finals in the first 7 years in town. Never had a losing season. Playoffs in every year but one, I believe. So his credentials are fantastic to be included in the Hall, and he hasn't gotten a sniff, I don't think, so far. And he's been out of the league, technically out of the job for 14 years. Where's the Hall votes for this guy? I think it's an absolute travesty that he's not in, and I would hate for it the fact that his death makes him become more, under focus for this, but he should have been in earlier. It's too bad he never got in while he was alive, because I think they will change their minds and put him in at some point. But it's a shame that we had to have sort of this sympathy thing all of a sudden for him to get his true recognition, I think, and he still hasn't gotten it formally. So yeah, the answer to your question, though, yes, he should be in the Hockey Hall of Fame. Do you guys agree?
I've gone back and forth on it a lot over the years. I think where over time you won me over, is that the progress that he made for players as an agent. We think about it when we think about the term like getting in as a builder, where you look at like a guy like David Poyle, who's been a GM for like 30 years and has as many Stanley Cup rings as I do.
0.
So, that's we kind of take for granted the success that he had in Colorado, like it was entitled because those teams were just so good. But he was a big reason those teams were as good as they were. And when you look at it, it's hard. Like winning a Stanley Cup is a lot easier when you have Joe Sakic and Peter Forsberg, and Patrick Waugh. You go out and you trade for Patrick Waugh. It's a lot easier when you have those guys there.
Sure.
But if you look at it, the 95 team and the 2001 team were way different teams. Yep. They were different eras of teams. There were a lot of guys from the 95-96 Avalanche that were gone and not part of the 2001 Stanley Cup team. He had the core guys. He recognized, hey, here are the Hall of Famers. I'll build around these cats. And that's what he did. And he transitioned them into a different era of guys like Chris Drury and Milan Hajduk and Alex Tanguay. And, Martin Skula was on that team and Scott Parker was on that team. And, then Blake and Bork and, homegrown Dan Heinold and Ville Nieminen, those guys were all guys that was his doing. He built that club. And so it wasn't like that Stanley Cup just fell out of the sky and was entitled, was just had the Colorado Avalanche's name on it before the season happened. They lost Peter Forsberg in the playoffs and had to adjust to that, to life without Peter Forsberg, and then to go take the defending Cup champs to 7 games without that guy on their roster was a testament to the team that he built.
Look at the two big deals too that resulted in you can say resulted in cups. Patrick Waugh, but people forget the throw-ins that he got were huge additions. Mike Keane was a huge addition in that trade. He probably had no business getting Mike Keane in that deal, but somehow he convinced the Wool to throw him in too. And he was a huge part of that team.
Yeah.
Then in 2001, when they did lose Forsberg, very valuable part of that lineup after that to fill in was Steve Reinprecht, who was a throw into the Blake trade. And you thought, who's Steve Reinprecht? Well, he became a very valuable, important player on that team that they may not have won the cup without. It wasn't just the big names. It was Pierre thought the whole trade through. He got as much as he could. And, you can technically say, this is going to make you guys laugh, of course, but you can say that the Theo Fleury trade did result in a Stanley Cup for the Colorado Avalanche. Chris Dingman, part of that Fleury trade, was on the 2001 Cup team, and he did make a very big play in Game 6 that won that Game 6 in New Jersey. That if you watch the tape, that goal by Adam Foote does not happen without Chris Dingman's play. He pinned basically Scott Gomez along the boards, forced the turnover by Gomez that led to the steal by Foote and the goal. So, another cup for Pierre. The Fleury trade was a cup winner, right? I submit.
You heard it here
another
first.
Home run for Pierre.
Yeah, I think, and again, like people kind of look back and they're, the Avs got to Colorado and they were full of superstars.
So,
but I mean, you look at the run, you look at that run that they went on, where they won the Stanley Cup, and then so they won 2 Stanley Cups. They lost 4 conference finals.
Oh no, they got screwed on one of them. I mean, They should have won one more cup. Obviously, they the one in 2000 is the year that's the one that got away, or 99. You're gonna say either one, really. But
but I mean, consider that kind of run. 2 Stanley Cup wins, that's great. But they got to the conference finals 4 other years, with only the 1 year in 97-98 when I believe they lost to Edmonton in the quarterfinals.
Yep, they lost in 7 games, and Brian Burke helped screw the Avalanche out of that series by suspending Joe Sakic for game 1 of that series for an absolutely ridiculous nothing hit against Chris Draper, where he was trying to avoid Draper, and they suspend Joe Sakic for a playoff game. Yeah. Well, they lost that game. Game 1 to the Oilers, and they lost game 7. So, Brian Burke, here's to you.
You look at that time, too, and for a lot of those years, the conference finals of the West was really just the Stanley Cup.
I know. Can you imagine if they played either Carolina or Buffalo? I mean, just a sweep,
would not have been close.
I mean, Hasek probably would have stole the game, but, that was – I know, and the funny thing is, I mean, they beat Detroit both years to get to those finals, and you thought it was over. Like, we just got Dallas to beat now, but friggin' Eddie Belfour, and the Avs just had Murphy's Law that first year, kind of everything that could go wrong. Game 7 did go wrong, and then pretty much the same thing the next year. I mean, Deadmarsh hits the pipe, 10 seconds to go. And Bork shot from the point, Deadmarsh tip off the post. I remember being right there in Reunion Arena and think, it's in. We're going to OT. They're going to smoke them in OT. I firmly believe they would have too. And no, the puck skitters away. And we all had to, I remember having to trudge down the stairs at Reunion where you had, that's the only way you get down to the locker room was through the arena lower bowl. And everybody just screaming Eddie's better. It was just super annoying and awful.
Super annoying and awful is a great way to describe the entire Dallas Stars existence.
Yeah, they were just brutal to watch, weren't they? There were so many good players. I'm not taking anything away from Ken Hitchcock, but boy, they were just thugs, right? Richard Mapachuk, Darian Hatcher, just thugs on the ice, just horse tackling Peter Forsberg anytime he had the puck. Now, dirty hits on Milan Hajduk and stuff like that. Screw the Stars.
Yeah, I brought it up just because it's an incredible run of success. Whether or not they should have won another cup, I mean, I think a lot of us feel that way. But to experience that level of success, not only in the regular season, to win your division every year for almost an entire decade, but then to also translate that into postseason, we just took. We took for granted the second round was a thing that happened in Colorado. Yeah. The season started and you just put the Avs into the second round every year. And then you would go from there because it just always happened. And then when the Avs, when the current iteration of the Avs won a playoff series, it was the first time in a decade they'd been in the second round, and it was like,
I mean,
oh my God,
our heads blew off. I know.
Right. We almost threw a parade for that.
They won a round.
Right.
I remember that in Calgary. Like, God, I can't believe this.
Yeah. So we had that, we took for granted just how good those teams were and the level of success that they had. And under different head coaches with very different rosters, the ties, what are the variables? What are the constants? Well, one of the constants was Pierre Lacroix.
Yep.
All that he did for the Avs, all of the success that he had, it's still a model that teams try to recreate. They, even the Blackhawks, they had 3 cups in their little dynastic run, but it's still, they were only just on that level of postseason success that Colorado had. I mean, they had the extra cup, obviously, they win that, but in terms of how good they were in the playoffs, it was Colorado that they were trying to live up to.
look at LA in that time frame too. They'd win a cup and then they'd miss the playoffs.
Right.
So
Yep.
and as a kid growing up, kind of to AJ's point, from the ages of 5 to 15, if the Avs didn't make the conference finals, it was a disappointment. Like,
Oh, I know. I mean, it was unbelievable when they didn't. It was like, I still couldn't believe that one year they didn't in '98. It was like, oh my God, this is not supposed to happen. But
Yeah.
and then the next 4 years though, they were in the Western Finals just like they're always supposed to be.
what do I do with my life in the middle of May?
Oh, I know.
Yeah,
I mean,
finals.
I remember thinking, this is, I'm going to be busy for the next 3 months, guaranteed, and that's the way it is. I mean, it's playoff season for the Avs, and I'm going to be working till June, and that's just the way it was.
Kind of the way that we're approaching life today.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah, that's right. There's no hockey. God.
Yeah, but when it does come back, we are fully expecting that we are not going to be done in the first round.
I mean, we can talk some Avs here for sure. I need to plug in my laptop, by the way. Can we take a 1 minute break while I do that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm sure we have a read. We can talk about
coffee, baby.
There you go.
The CBD infused coffee that has really changed lives. You can now subscribe and save 20% with a subscription. We know a ton of you have taken advantage of our DNVR 21 time code, but now you can save 20% forever, and you'll never have to put your credit card info in again or anything like that. You have the option of getting coffee every 2, 3, 4, 6, or 8 weeks with that 20% off subscription deal. It's awesome. Highly recommend the stuff. They have amazing flavors. I think I already mentioned their s'mores flavor. They have some other ones too. I think they just have a regular marshmallow flavor as well.
When I get back to Colorado, I'm trying the s'mores.
Yeah, deliciousness.
Yeah, I'm trying it. I struggle with the coffee, but I'm trying it.
There you go. So StravaCraftCoffee.com to get your 20% off there. As we lost Dater for a second, hopefully he comes back once his laptop situation is all sorted out. But
Dater versus technology is one of the rivalries I do miss getting to be a part of every day.
True. We should put him and Drew in the same room and just see what happens to the electronics.
I don't want to be in that room with technology. Those are the two people with the worst technology luck I've ever been around.
Yeah, no good.
Stuff just breaks because they're coolers. They're just in there, and for whatever reason. Technology,
the way it goes.
Nah.
So, yeah, I mean, obviously, I don't have.
I think the Pierre as a builder conversation is interesting because what constitutes a builder, and when they did putting Ken Holland in, I think is you look at that and you say, well, okay, well, I've always kind of been on the fence with Lacroix's
resume for that
Hall of Fame credentials, but when you throw Ken Holland in there, it's like not anymore.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, you open up that door. Pierre should be following Ken Holland in there anyway. The fact that Pierre has to follow Ken Holland is gross.
Is there a case that Ken Holland is the Harold Baines of the NHL Hall of Fame?
Yes. Absolutely.
Right. Okay, just checking. Dater, you're back with us here.
Yeah, sorry. I just bought this cheap laptop, of course, and I misjudge how fast the battery runs out when it's not plugged in. You guys, you may not know this, Rudo, but I'm AJ knows I'm kind of cheap, maybe is a word. I'd like to say frugal.
And when it comes to laptops, he's cheap.
Yeah. Yes.
Guilty. AD loves that $150 meetup in a back alley on Craigslist deal.
That's how I bought like 3 of my laptops. That's not even a joke. That's not even that's dead on. Yeah, I bought another cheap laptop I got on eBay, and it weighs like 45 pounds. No joke.
Right.
And the battery, yeah, it's pathetic. So had to be plugged in. Apologies, guys, but I'm back.
No problem.
Glad to hear the little trashing of Ken Holland there.
Got to get it where we can,
I mean,
didn't mean so much disrespect to Ken Holland as I did to the guys who vote the Hall of Famers in, because I mean Ken Holland's had a great career too, but how do you separate his success?
Look how he left the Wings. Look at the state he left the Red Wings in.
Yeah,
talk about a guy who managed poorly in those last few years.
Right. Well, and he managed a ton of his career. So much of his career was defined by finding a Hall of Fame player later on. I mean, pulling Pavel Datsyuk and Henrik Zetterberg out of nowhere.
Yep.
Gave them that second era, and like, yeah, you get credit for that, of course. But had they expected those guys would have been Hall of Fame players, they wouldn't have taken them in the 7th round or whatever. They would have drafted them much earlier. They got lucky. Okay,
You did get lucky.
Okay to say that.
Yeah, it's okay to say it. And yeah, he made some good moves. He's a good man. I know Ken Holland. He's good, but yeah, like, come on. I mean, he managed terribly his last few years. He had an open checkbook for a owner for a few years where they just went out and bought whatever they wanted. So yeah,
he hadn't done anything in Edmonton yet.
He's like Brian Cashman of the Yankees. It's so easy to be a great GM when hey, I can spend $40 million a year on some third, number 3 starter.
Honestly, it just felt like they weren't willing to commit to a rebuild. They spent like the better part of this decade trying to hold on to a playoff streak with no chance of actually winning anything.
Yeah. Well, their last several years of making the postseason, it was like they would squeak in, they'd get rolled, and then let's all move on.
Yeah.
And like, as much as I hated them seeing make the postseason, I did enjoy watching them get bounced and be irrelevant playoff wise, because I was like, great, you're Eastern Minnesota. This is wonderful.
Yeah, for sure. Times were different 20 years ago, I guess, in the NHL.
Bertuzzi twice.
Ugh.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now they have Tyler.
Yeah, now they got Tyler.
Just as scummy with that punch on Matt Calvert.
Yeah.
God. Well,
Matt Calvert thought that was great, by the way.
Matt Calvert would.
Yeah. I tried talking to him about it, and he was just like, it was awesome. That's what hockey is. I'm like, what a weirdo.
Oh, man. I hope we see Matt Calvert on the ice here soon.
I miss the guys. I didn't. AD, I know we're kind of done. We've kind of wrapped up the Pierre conversation, but you just miss being in a locker room.
Oh, hell. I mean, we're still not even going to experience that till next fall. I mean, there's no way we're going to be in the locker rooms this season.
Yep.
I fully expect not to have talked to a hockey player face to face until from this past March until this coming next fall.
Well, and even this past March was so weird because they stopped letting us in the locker room and they would like pull guys out.
I mean, I thought that maybe they'll do that. Maybe they will allow players to come out and talk. Because let's face it, I mean, I don't think anybody knew in those early days about masks and feeling safe around other people at all. Everybody had to be locked away. I think people sort of, I hope, feel now that, you can be around each other with a mask on. But, we're also talking the super paranoid, ultra legalistic world of pro sports where, they don't want any Tom, Dick, or Harry to squeak through the security and throw it all off somehow. It's easier to just keep us all out and do everything by Zoom, probably. I mean, that's still kind of what I think is going to happen.
Yeah, I'm dreading
upstairs and talking on Zoom. I mean, it's still amazing to me that I think you guys knew that I went to Edmonton for playoffs and go all the way there. I never saw a player once. I saw him on the ice down below, but I never once was able to talk to a player face to face, even though I was all the way there. It's a crazy world, man. I tell you. I just hope. I'm just like you guys probably. I'm just hoping we get the goddamn announcement for the season, and we get this thing rolling somehow next month.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I need training camp to start a little later than January 3rd, but it'll be fine if it does.
Why do you need that later?
I don't get back to the States until the 5th.
Oh, I didn't know you were leaving. You're leaving for north of the border, I take it, maybe.
I'm in Winnipeg right now, man.
Oh, you're in Winnipeg right now?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I've been here for, when did I get here? November 6th? Yeah, I got here November 6th.
Really?
Yeah.
Holy smokes! I didn't know that. Guess
I had to get a special exemption from the Canadian government to get up here. It was a good time.
Holy smokes! Wow. Well, geez, that's amazing. I can't believe you're in Winnipeg. Wow, that's cool.
It is quite cool.
I bet you're pretty cold.
It is 1 degrees right now.
It is the coldest place on earth. That is no joke at all.
I tell you, Z was telling me last night that this is the warmest Winnipeg winter since the 30s.
Oh, I bet. I mean, 1 sounds like heaven. I remember being there a couple of years ago. Minus 30, minus 40. That's normal.
Yeah.
Well, maybe you can talk Patrick Laine into taking a sweetheart deal to come to the Avs. Maybe, huh? Hasn't he been rumored to be on the move for like 3 years now?
Yeah. Anytime I try and bring up Patrick Laine in this house, I get shut down. So I see. So
Yeah.
I don't need to pick a fight with the significant other over Patrick.
We don't need Patrick Laine.
It's Nick Ehlers that I try and hold my ground on.
While I'm here, I mean, I listen to the podcast. You got not everyone, but I've heard. Do we think that what's the number one thing I want to ask you guys? Do we think that the top 6 they have on defense right now is good enough? A and B, should we still think long and hard about letting a Timmins or a Byram maybe steal one of those top 6 jobs? To me, that's still a huge thing that I'm always interested in. Is can Ian Cole maybe lose his job somehow, and then just if the guy has an amazing camp,
I think that's where we're headed, to be honest with you.
Yep.
Like, you think that's by the end of the season we'll have Timmins and or Byram in there and not Ian Cole?
Depending on how injuries go, yeah. I think Byram's going to get every opportunity to steal somebody's job.
I fully expect some type of 7th D rotation, whether it's Cole and Byram or maybe Graves gets a night off so often or whatever. But
with the compressed schedule, obviously they have to play more guys. But but they're going to have to do the. They're going to have to burn the year of ELC off of Byram, right? But that doesn't matter so much without expansion anymore after this year, right?
Yeah, the big thing with the ELC is that now they have Byram under contract for less than $1 million.
Yeah.
So do you want to wait as long as you can, like they did with Kaut, or do they want to burn it this year because they think that he can help them this year? If they are convinced that he can help them do the thing, then he's clearly a skill upgrade. He's the biggest skill upgrade that almost any NHL team can add to their defense just by promoting a player.
Yeah.
He's for my money, he's the best defenseman in the world, not in the NHL. So
we all talk about max contract as the big one, but this is the 1 year the Avs have before they have to pay Cale Makar. So
right. Yep. The D is something I'm still, to me, that's still. And AJ, we're gonna have a gentleman's bet here. Maybe we can bet $1. I'm gonna say, we talked about this on text the other night. I'm gonna say that Ryan Graves has a better year than Devon Toews and makes the Avs think long and hard about not exposing him. Now, I do not expect to see Devon Toews be exposed at all. Period. No matter what. But to lose a Graves to nothing for nothing in expansion, maybe, I think he's going to have a hell of a year. I think you're going to be coming around more to my side of the thinking, saying, boy, I was wrong about Ryan Graves. Dater was right, as always. He was right that Graves got to even another level. And, boy, am I glad I didn't listen to him and expose him. And, we're going to find a way to keep Ryan Graves by hook or by crook. You agree, right, AJ?
Yeah, I don't. You know that I don't.
You're like, did somebody just speak? Was some man talking?
Yeah, I think those technical issues are coming back. Boy, that laptop really is junk, man.
I can't believe
we just did an entire week on the expansion draft. If you want, we can set up a day for you to come back and to make your Ryan
one of
Graves
the
argument.
archives. You saying? All right, I got so many podcasts on my to listen list that it's no. But boy, AJ, the lack of respect for a great player like Ryan Graves, man, you are going to be eating your words. I mean,
Okay.
The plus minus leader of the NHL.
Oh, yeah. Hey, that's the Bud Light plus minus leader, mind you.
People's half your audience just heads exploded when I said plus minus. I know, but look, hey, there's a reason why you're a plus and a reason why you're a minus.
Yeah. When you play next to Cale Makar, it's easy to be a plus.
Cale Makar, boy, can the guy are you guys worried like I am he's going to be injury prone his whole career?
Yes.
Me too.
Nah, he'd be fine.
I worry. I worry that his mindset and his frame don't sync up well.
He's got to be 100% in his own mind to be able to play. Is that what you're saying?
No, I just think that he wants to go out there and he wants to crush fools, and sometimes that's going to give him shoulder problems because he may not necessarily be built for throwing big old checks all the time.
Well, I think he's going to be fine too, but yeah, I am worried always a little bit about Cale's health. I hope to see him a little beefier this year, maybe in the upper body. Of course, I won't see him in the locker room to know that probably, but maybe he'll take the shirt off for a post-game Zoom call or something.
I mean, if he's going to give us 60 points in 60 games every year, that's fine. He can miss 20.
Yeah, and he's going to. I think he's going to do more than that. I mean, I think he's going to get 80 and 60. I think he's a chance that he could get 100 points in an 82-game season. I really do.
Yeah, see, we've talked about this a lot on the pod. Both Rudo and I think he has a 100-point season in his career.
Well, I'm in agreement there. I mean, to me, he's just the most breathtaking young talent I've seen in many years.
Yep, we all agree.
Just the first game. Remember that first shift against Calgary? I was like, oh, my God.
Yeah.
Remember how excited I got when I saw JT Comfort for the first time, AJ, and you probably had played him up to me? And I'm like, wow, I didn't know how good he was. I hadn't been around the team in about a year to that point. That's like 10 times what I felt with Cale. Hopefully we'll see JT get back to his game, right? He had a pretty good playoff, right? But not real good.
He was really good in the first half, but he was not good against Dallas.
Yeah. Well,
I think he only had 2 assists in the entire series against Dallas.
Yeah, I know, and that's
just
bad. I mean, I expected him to have a much bigger playoff than he did. Disappointing, but
yep.
We got Newhook on the way. He's going to be dynamite starting next year. So,
well, AD, it sounds like you have Ab's thoughts, so we'll have to get you to come back for a different show.
Oh, I got
one that's not dedicated to Pierre.
All right, I'll take that offer, and maybe I can get you to come on this little podcast I have now and then too.
You let me know, man. I'm doing a lot of sitting around right now, so.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, guys, and stay warm there in Winnipeg, AJ. I don't want to hear how I don't want to really necessarily hear how you're keeping warm, maybe, but just let it go at that.
Heat. Houses have heat.
Okay, we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, right, I'm sure all our viewers already know. But Dater, if you want to tell the good people where they can find you.
Oh well, that's gracious of you guys. Well, yeah,
kick him out right now. Ready? Where did they go?
Okay, yeah. So I run a little site called ColoradoHockeyNow.com. Come on over and check it out if you want. Got plenty of free content on there at times. And by the way, I write a little gambling stuff too for a place called Boogies.com. Guys, I don't know about you, but I've taken all you guys up on your DraftKings promo offers. I hope the word degenerate is not my last name soon. Definitely since gambling came into Colorado legally, I've definitely partaken a little more of this this thing called sports betting. Had a pretty good week too. Buffalo Bills made me a little money last night, so yeah, I can see how gambling is slightly catchy at times. I never made my first bet till this year. Now I'm like, I got like 4 sports books on my phone right now. So, you know,
when the world opens back up, man, you should come down to the bar and bet on every pitch during a Rockies
Oh,
game. Like
man.
we
oh
did
my
tonight.
God, I know it's to that point. You can bet on every pitch. I know.
Yeah, we literally did it for like 3 or 4 innings of a game.
Yeah.
We were betting on
Jesus.
every single
Yeah,
pitch.
I think I'll probably never get that far down the line, but yeah,
It was a good time.
I see the allure of gambling, especially on your phone. My God, it's easy, and yeah, it's yeah. Keep those promos coming. All those free bets I've taken advantage of, and yeah, I'm not going to say, oh, I bet some money on in a prop bet for the Cup, but just yet. But I'll let you know if I come in as a winner this coming year.
All right. So there you go.
All
Be
right.
sure to check out Colorado Hockey Now. Of course, you can find us here at DNVR on the pod 5 days a week, and all of our written and video content over at thednvr.com. For our YouTube videos like this one, be sure to like and subscribe. That helps us out a ton as well. Dater, thank you again for coming on the podcast. We are going to get out of here for the day. Of course, condolences to the Lacroix family. Obviously, Pierre, big part of Avalanche history, and he will certainly be missed by many, many people, I'm sure. So, yeah, thoughts and all that going their way. Good vibes, and hope everyone has a good rest of their Monday, and we will talk to you all next time.